That's right, we are live. Should I say we are live? Or instead, should I say, we're back? That's right, orange and blue today. We are back. Vance Joseph is back with the Denver Broncos, and Andrew Mason will be back shortly. We're working through some technical difficulties on the other side. It is Thursday. It is the day the Broncos hire a bunch of people. It's the day after Sean Payton goes after our friend Eric Goodman on Twitter. We'll talk about that. But yeah, the Broncos have hired their staff, everybody. Like, it's no drama, no doomsday, no sky is falling. Like, they hired him. I had felt, and again, there's only agent-fed information and there's speculation. I want to be very clear about that. The Broncos as a team are not leaking information. So when I had said earlier this week, the hire's going to happen this week, I remember Zach Bye. I was on with Zach Bye. He's like, are you going to guarantee that? I'm like, well, I mean, you guys putting bets down on it? I mean, it is Stokely and Zach, but I was like, no, but just kind of the general feeling is there would be a hire this week. Now there's been multiple hires this week. And of course, Andrew Mason here with me to break it all down. Mace, it happened just like we thought it would, just like we said it would. And hey, we're back.
Hey, what was everyone worried about?
Exactly.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah, they have a defensive coordinator. The staff is in place. Pretty much, they're ready for the combine. All is well. It's like in the media, we come up with these things to just fill the time.
Right.
Okay, there's a void of information out there because this isn't the John Elway Broncos where the leaks. I mean, there was a torrent of leaks. It was a waterfall of leaks coming out.
They couldn't help but tell you stuff.
Yes. Not anymore. That's done. That's over. It's over. I will say this, though, because one of the things that caught everybody's attention was Sean Payton's clapback last night.
And our pal Eric Goodman, I brought it up before you jumped on it, and you and I both love Goody. I think Goody at the press conferences, there's only a few people that ask good questions. Goody's one of them.
He's one of them, yes.
He's one of them, yes, and I appreciate that. He's East Coast or Chicago, I guess.
Chicago, yeah.
You know him very well, but like for me, I was more like Sean Payton, don't be checking your replies on Twitter. And Goody didn't even tag him. He just must Google his name or something.
That's
either way. Like, I don't want the coach responding, to what Goodman said.
I'm not sure if it was him or somebody in his circle that directed him to that tweet and was searching, but there was something that Sean Payton said during his initial press conference as Broncos head coach.
Yep.
Anonymous donors, right? Wanted things to be quiet. And so I get where he's coming from, and I do think everyone should have taken the advice of Aaron Rodgers from a few years ago and just generally gone into RELAX mode.
Relax.
Yes. But I'll say this. If you're going to be the anonymous donor, you got to practice what you preach. And in this case, he didn't do that. I get where he's coming from, but I thought it undermined that part of his message a little bit. That's a mild quibble that I have, but it's a quibble nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a mild quibble, and Twitter is such a cesspool anyway. If people like you got dunked on, I'm like, they got a coach, everybody, and they got Vance Joseph. They got and one thing that we can talk about with both Joe Lombardi, which we don't know yet, and Mace, if you've heard anything different, we don't really know what he's going to be coordinator like. Role, but not necessarily OC. Obviously, Sean Payton's going to run the show on offense, but like the Vance Joseph hire and the Joe Lombardi hire to me simplify or exemplify two things. And you wrote about a couple of them at denversports.com in your article about Vance Joseph. But to me, Mace, it's more results with less responsibility. I think VJ can be a good defensive coordinator here. And Joe Lombardi, whether it's just quarterback coach or coordinator like or whatever, like with less responsibility, I think you can have more results from both Lombardi and Vance Joseph.
That's a good point. I'll say this for for Joe Lombardi. Like, one critique of him when he was with the Chargers was not pushing it downfield
Oh God, no.
as much as the skill set of Justin Herbert may have dictated you should have been doing. So it's possible that he could have been just the wrong coordinator for that particular quarterback. But going back to like Russell Wilson wanting to make himself into something, to something that can sustain through to his late 30s. If there's a chance of that, then Joe Lombardi's got a pretty good chance of doing that. And if not, you'll simply turn the page and go to the next quarterback. So I think for what they'll probably ask him to do, not play calling, but maybe pass game coordinator could be a title we're talking about with Joe Lombardi, or an offensive coordinator title where he's running the pass game. That's something that I think he can do, he can do well. Now, you're not asking him to run the whole thing, but you're asking him very specifically to work with Russell Wilson and make him into the controlled passer that he wants to be. Hey, you got to use this year to find out whether Russ can become something sustainable into his late 30s or not, right?
Right. And you wrote about it at denversports.com. So much of football and life, Mace, if we want to get meta with it, like it's about timing.
Yeah.
Everything's about timing. And the timing of this, like it's right place, right time. Whereas before with Vance Joseph, and we've said it before on the show, hell, I made it one of our clips. If you follow us at denversports.com on Twitter, the most important thing ever is I was like, VJ didn't have any power. He was stripped of power by John Elway, allegedly, or whatever I have to say. Don't get mad at me, John. I still want to drink some bourbon with you at your restaurant. But anyway, like, no. VJ didn't have any power. Now we don't have to worry about that. Like, he's just going to get to run the defense. And that's where it's right place, right time, right man, right time.
Yeah. And yes, I get that the results haven't been great, but if you look at the total defense rankings, you're like, oh man, maybe this isn't going to work. We can have a deeper dive over the next few days into like everything that went wrong with Arizona, including the fact this past year you got to the point against the Broncos where they were literally out of cornerbacks, and DeAndre Hopkins was going up to Vance Joseph on the sideline saying, hey, if you need somebody to play corner, I can step in and do it for you. It was crazy. It was a bad situation that got out of control with Arizona. It wasn't going to be it wasn't going to work out. At the same time, you look at his you look at the years that he's been a coordinator or a head coach, and you look at the Football Outsiders DVOA rankings instead of total defense, and you actually see 3 top 10 defenses in there, including a couple of top 10 defenses with Arizona in 2020 and 2021. And of course, that's probably a better measure than just total defense, because you're measuring situations and you're measuring, the leverage of plays and all that. So I think they got somebody who can guide the defense fairly well. And the other thing is also on defensive coordinators, sees a lot of the best defensive coordinators, it took them decades to get to that level. I mean,
right.
If we talked about Vic Fangio 20 years ago, 18 years ago with Houston, and before they'd been with Indianapolis, you'd be saying, oh, there's a lot of defense there, kind of shaky in there. But then
and that was after his dome patrol as a linebackers coach.
Right.
So see how he had such success with the greatest 4 linebackers in NFL history. I have no doubt about that. With the Saints in the early 90s. Then he gets DC jobs, and it's like, well, why aren't you used to be good? Like, what happened? And then time happens and improvement happens.
Yeah. I mean, Wade Phillips was never better as a coordinator than he was in his 60s. Right. Even, pushing 70, because he did a great job with the Rams as well.
Yes.
The late Larry Coyer finally broke through in his 60s and was a very good defensive coordinator while he was here in Denver. Dick LeBeau, you could argue, had his best work in his 60s into his 70s. Mm-hmm. Defensive coordinator, it's an interesting job, but there's a pattern of it really taking years, even decades, to master and peak at that job. And Vance Joseph, in terms of being a coordinator or higher on the tree, he's only in year 8 this year coming into that, because 1 year defensive coordinator in Miami, 2 years as a head coach with Denver, 4 years as a coordinator in Arizona. Now he is a coordinator here in Bronco land. That'll annoy some people if I say that, but I don't care. Yeah.
Welcome to Bronco Land.
Yes, welcome to Bronco. I still say that if they ever build like a huge Broncos stadium complex, whatever, with a neighborhood and all that, there should be a sign that we're a smiling John Elway saying, "Welcome to Bronco Land," and just call it Bronco Land.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sorry for that detour, but the point is, it takes some time for defensive coordinators to really reach their peak. So I think with Vance Joseph, you're getting somebody who's already a reasonable distance down that path, and a coach that as a coordinator, I think is going to continue getting better. And like I said in my piece at denversports.com, he was the wrong guy in the wrong spot at the wrong time back in 2017. Yep. Was he ready to be a head coach? No, the resume was pretty thin. But at the same time, he was in a really bad situation. You mentioned, that, let's face it, they cut his power. The marionette strings were being pulled on him behind the scenes. He never had a good quarterback situation. He basically got force-fed Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. He walked into the kitchen, got Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch, and like, okay,
why can't you win?
Why can't you win? You can't win because you have a career backup and you have a guy who's literally gotten benched now in the XFL and the USFL
and the CFL.
He never started he was a practice squad guy in the CFL. He didn't even rise enough in the CFL to get benched. The only thing that's missing from Paxton Lynch's resume is that he didn't play in the Alliance of American Football back in 2019 that lasted 2/3 of the season.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, he'd have every item on the bingo card. If the Arena League restarts next year, Paxton Lynch is going to be there, right?
I just want to rock my Battle Hawks gear, but it is orange and blue today. Mace, baby, we're all about the detours on this show.
Yeah,
like we're going to give you the information, the opinions, the dogs, the comic books, and we're going to give you like
Ruby. Oh, and she's off.
Hey,
I think I stalled. She was looking up because there's I think there was a squirrel outside. I'm here in the sunroom, and Ruby just kind of took off. She'll be back.
Yeah,
she usually comes back in here.
The Broncos also defensively, look at what Vance Joseph has taken over. And I tweeted this, the most important thing ever. I was like, you need some more pass rushers, but look at what he gets to handle. So Vance Joseph and the numbers and the things haven't looked real good. Yes, but look at the Broncos defense that he takes over.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, why would he turn down Philadelphia? What do they have? 10 UFAs on that defense?
Yes.
Philadelphia is going to look a lot different. Plus, with Philadelphia, who had 70 sacks last year, the NFL record is 72 for the 84 Bears, not 85, but 84. Mm-hmm. So, if you take over Philadelphia and they have 60 sacks, now people are saying, what did you do? But if you take over, and I speak of sacks specifically, because Denver didn't have very many sacks.
Right.
So you take over this defense, which is already strong, bunch of playmakers. Now you get more pass rushers. You create more pressure. Your offense helps you by scoring points. You get more sacks. Now your defense gets even better. Now people say, wow, Vance Joseph. And in a year, VJ could be back in the head coach conversation somewhere.
There's another thing that'll help. And I think you're talking about a defense that can complement an offense. Let's face it, this year, I think we're looking at hi, Ruby. I think we're looking at it. Yeah. Oh, you're so cute. I think we're looking at a defense that is going to be complementing a ground-based offense.
Yes.
And you and I have talked about what we would do at running back. And I think we're going to see some offensive linemen coming in here in free agency as well. So it's going to be a team that has a deliberate tempo. I don't think you're looking at a team that's going to have a lot of fireworks this year. I think it's going to be a team that tries to establish things on the ground and maybe even shorten some games a little bit, especially against teams like the Kansas City Chiefs that are on the schedule. So that in turn is going to help the defense, because hopefully the offense won't be going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, left, right, center, and forcing a fatigued defense back onto the field. Hopefully it's going to be able to get some more rest and then be in a better position to attack in a way that it wasn't before. And also on this defensive side, comparing this job to Philadelphia, there's nowhere to go but up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I shouldn't say there's nowhere to go but up. Philadelphia has nowhere to go but down.
Exactly.
Whereas the Broncos have some ability to improve and get better, and may well be better for the type of situation that's going to present themselves if the offense is better and if the special teams is better as well. So I can't blame him for doing this. And then also he mentioned this on Hard Knocks. I said Hard Knocks back last season. There's no bitterness to him toward the Broncos. And if anything, there's still a great deal of affinity that he and his family have for Colorado.
Yes.
That, he went to school at CU. He's somebody who I think wanted to come back to Colorado at some point to live beyond football. Now he gets a chance, just as Miami had more appeal to Vic Fangio for a lot of reasons, personnel, location. It's on the East Coast. Vic's an East Coast guy, etc. I think Colorado and Denver had a special appeal to Vance Joseph, leading to him taking this job. And then beyond this, I think Sean Payton's going to give Vance Joseph pretty free reign over this defense as well. And he needed a coordinator to whom he could give free reign, because there is so much to do on the offensive side, especially with Russell Wilson. And Payton's also going to be watching the special teams very closely. It's an old Bill Parcellsism that the first thing you can really make a positive impact on when you come in with a new regime is to improve the special teams. Yes. And goodness knows the Broncos special teams needs a heck of a lot of improvement. There's an area that has nowhere to go but up, basically. And so Sean Payton can now keep his eyes on those 2/3 of the team and trust Vance Joseph to get things done on the defensive side. And it doesn't hurt that you kept Marcus Dixon and you kept Christian Parker on the staff as well, two very highly regarded position coaches on the defensive line and in the secondary. That's huge.
There was a piece, and shout out probably your friend. You and I have never talked about Armando Salguero, but your friend and mine, Armando Salguero.
I've had many conversations with Armando over the years.
Yeah, good man. He's with Outkick and Fox Sports and all that. Hall of Fame voter. He had a piece about Vance Joseph's a lesson about grace and strength of character. I thought it was fantastic. And he, in that piece, said that Vance Joseph reached out to a few of his coaching mentors, one being Wade Phillips. Can you really go back? Can you go home, so to speak? And Wade, of course, who did it himself from a Broncos head coach to a Broncos DC, Wade was like, yes. Now, not everyone did. But Vance Joseph, leaning on the opinion, the insight, guidance of Wade Phillips, I thought it was fantastic.
Well, Wade's also the biggest influence on Vance tactically as well, and the type of defense he tries to run. That was part of the appeal of Vance Joseph to the Denver Broncos when they hired him back in 2017. Was they didn't want to hire Wade Phillips as a head coach, but they wanted somebody who was going to keep things very similar. And also, the other thing that helped Vance Joseph is another one of his mentors is Gary Kubiak. And he worked under both Phillips and Kubiak on the Houston staff from 2011 to 2013. And certainly Gary Kubiak, he didn't come back as an assistant, although he was willing to.
He almost did.
A bit. Almost did back in 2019 when Vic Fangio got the job, come back to be the Broncos offensive coordinator. So here you have a couple of coaches, one of whom did go home again, another who nearly did. And these are part of the trees that Vance Joseph sprouted from over the years. And so it's very telling, and in some ways not surprising that he would say, yes, I want to come back to the place where I was a head coach and be a coordinator. And the other thing is this, it's not like there are many players left from when he was here. I mean, It's only, believe it or not, it's only been, just a little over 4 years since he coached his last game with the Broncos.
Well, and that speaks on many things. One, it speaks on just the churn of the NFL, but also just on the poor drafting that you did in the Elway regime. And even George Payton, I'm not ready to, give him full credit or whatever, but the VJ thing, like service level, there's a lot of people like, this is awful. Like, no, dig a little deeper, look at it. And again, respond with positivity. Like there's a chance Vance Joseph can have that redemptive arc to his career. And if Vance Joseph hired as a head coach a year from now somewhere, I'm not going to be surprised.
No, it'll probably also mean the Broncos were a playoff team too.
Yes.
If Vance Joseph gets another head coaching job, this was a terrific season. That's what you're rooting for. Okay.
Yes.
Believe it or not, you are rooting for the Broncos to have another coordinator next year because they did so well that VJ got another shot, because he already is on radars. People saw him on Hard Knocks. I wrote this in my piece at denversports.com. That's not the same guy that we saw in Denver. If you saw the way he addressed the team and you saw the way he handled the media, watch his press conferences. This is somebody who has matured a great deal, that learned a lot. The guy who too often up there in public moments was a deer in headlights, that's gone now.
Yeah.
That's absolutely gone. This is you watched Hard Knocks and you watched Kingsbury speak, and then you watch Vance Joseph speak. You're like, VJ should be the head coach of this team, and he'd probably do a lot better.
Yeah. I don't want Orlando to get mad at me, but it didn't help having Uncle Mike thinking he was the head coach here either. You know, like that sort of split and decision. It's like you had many things, and honestly,
and Mike was foisted on him too.
Yes. Yeah. So it was like another control thing. It was like you wouldn't give him control. You kind of wanted a guy to spy on him, basically. Mm-hmm. You would go to Saturday and tell him, scrap your game plan, and he'd have to go to players and coaches and say, sorry, we're not doing what we planned during the week. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work out. Everyone be shocked. So like, look at how Vance Joseph was already on that fast track to being a head coach, got his chance, failed, went back, rehab, recovered. Now he's back on that same track. Yeah. So again, like I look at it in a positive light of like what could be. Broncos a playoff team, defense has more teeth, Vance Joseph now, and that's what you want. You want your coaches to leave eventually because it means you're good. It means you're having success.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say on Vance Joseph is, and we've talked about it with players developing. Some guys need more time. Mm-hmm. Coaches, some need more time. Just because you have these young coaches like Nick Sirianni and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay that have had success doesn't mean that every young coach is going to have success. Some need more time.
And remember, Kyle had the same record as VJ their first 2 years.
Right. There you go. I mean,
that's all I'm saying. That's Kyle with John Lynch.
And it's all about the quarterback, right? And Kyle Shanahan, a reason why he didn't succeed his first couple of years is because went through CJ Beathard. The only time it really worked for the 49ers those first 2 years was when Jimmy Garoppolo was starting, right? After they traded for him late in 2017. Right. And then Garoppolo gets hurt in 2018. You got to go with Nick Mullins for a good chunk of that season. And while they maximize Nick Mullins, you're not going anywhere with Nick Mullins. Mm-mm. And you go to Vance Joseph on the other side. He's cycling through Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, Case Keenum. And as you and I have discussed, Cease, there's a scenario that if it worked out where Case Keenum wouldn't have been starting at the end of that 2018 season, they would have been giving Chad Kelly a look. Yes. Honestly, Cease, I think the only thing I look back on that I say, okay, this was a lingering failure from Vance Joseph, and he was a part of it, and he wasn't like overly involved with it, but he was a part of it, is that the coaching staff had Josh Allen for a week. Mm-hmm. And they didn't pick him.
Yeah.
That to me, I can't specifically put that on Vance Joseph, but he was the supervisor of the coaches then. And the result of that week was they didn't feel like they could pick Josh Allen. Some of that may be John Elway as well being trigger shy after the Paxton Lynch pick. But but of everything that happened on the field that week, and not coming out of that week saying, we like Josh Allen, we see how he's developed, because we could all see how he was getting better with coaching that week.
The first day he missed the net in the famous Nikki Javala tweet, right? And he missed the passing net or whatever it was, a horrible throw.
Yes.
Then by the end, he was like perfect.
Dropping dimes all over the place by Thursday and in the game.
Yeah.
And you look back on that, and you're like, okay, should have picked him. But yeah, it's interesting to look at the Vance Joseph era and say, what was the most important week and what was the biggest thing that failed? And it wasn't It wasn't a Bronco week.
No.
It was Senior Bowl week.
Yep.
Because that's the thing that lingers to this day. That
week also
that would have solved a lot of problems. And oh, by the way, if they'd had Josh Allen out there, that might have bought Vance Joseph another year. Now,
exactly.
It's possible they could have said, no, we got to get an offensive-minded coach. But it's also possible that they might have looked at Josh Allen, seen where he was going, and said, okay, let's not disrupt the apple cart just yet. Let's keep it up with him and Billy Musk. Might have changed Billy Musk's life. Instead, Billy Musgrave got fired at Cal this past year. So, anyway.
Good thing Luke Musgrave's his nephew. But here's another. I'll throw in another butterfly effect for you. Gary would have come back in 2019.
To coach Josh Allen.
Exactly. With Vance Joseph as the head coach. Gary is his OC. Yes.
And guess what? Josh Allen would have still become a great quarterback.
Super Bowl, baby. Super Bowl.
I mean, might have been better for Josh Allen. How about that?
You're not too far off there, my friend.
So you could have had. So are you saying maybe you even have Gary Kubiak working for Vance Joseph?
Yeah.
That would have been something.
Yeah, because Gary would have done it. You had to bring some of his assistants, but here's the key. You wouldn't have fired him.
I know.
Because when Gary wanted to come back, and that's how they sold Vic on the job, is like, you're going to have Gary. I don't have to pay attention to the offense every day. Yeah. And then Gary's like, bring all my guys. And they're like, no, we just fired him. So they wouldn't have fired him. Kept BJ
Is there any concern that you have about this clearly being plan B? Because let's face it, Vic Fangio
wasn't Sean Payton plan B?
Maybe
again,
plan C.
Exactly. Depend on how much you believe the D'Amico Ryans thing. And it's like, okay, find the guys. You got Sean Payton, you got Vance Joseph to run the defense. We kind of knew Lombardi would be coming along, and whatever role that is, I like this collection. I love the Westhoff hire. This staff is one that I can get behind. And God bless everyone that's moved on. And Evero will be a head coach someday. And we like Zach Azzani. Zach's a good guy, although there's probably some stuff I could say for a little bit of a different show on Zach. But no, go. Have all the greatness in the world. We all like you. You guys are all good. But this staff seems more solid and less disjointed, even though it is, plan B, plan C, whatever.
The only thing I'm concerned about right now is Davis Webb as quarterback coach.
That was interesting. Literally
going from playing to coaching.
At least not like Luke. Remember when it was going to be was it Luke McCown? It wasn't Luke McCown. It was Josh McCown. You're going to be a head coach. And I'm like, no. I know it's a good old boy network, but so at least Josh McCown now he's gotten a chance to
But now he's got a normal, okay.
Right.
Now he's getting plugged in and he's been retired for a little bit. I mean,
Davis Webb was a backup to Daniel Jones last year.
He's literally going from playing to coaching. I'm trying to coaching quarterbacks, and he's 6 years younger than the quarterback he's going to be coaching.
But he was Mahomes' backup at Texas Tech. I think it's interesting. I don't like Davis Webb because he turned down Colorado. He was supposed to go to CU when he transferred because Mahomes, he got hurt. Mahomes took over
against the guy. I mean, Boulder's not for everybody.
I know, but still, and still a little bitter, because you get excited, especially back then. You got to think of the journey of CU fans. It's been so long, Mace. Why do you think I got 3 Deion Sanders sweatshirts? But anyway, when Webb said no to
what are they, a 17-point underdog to TCU in the opener?
Yeah, without all the 10 starters or whatever.
Yeah, Vegas isn't buying CU just yet, but I digress.
Yeah.
It will at some point.
Black and gold today? I don't know. We could do that, right?
Yeah.
Throw it in once in a while. Anyway.
That's all we have to do is just put the logo through Photoshop, and it's pretty easily done, right?
I got to tell you, Mace, today is a good day. If you're a Broncos fan, you should feel good. It's not about because people like you and Mace are redeemed. I'm like, no, we just don't buy into the this is the worst thing ever and it's a disaster and they don't know what they're doing. I think that's spunk. And God bless our friends who are saying those things for various reasons. Either they believe it or it's what you do as a talk show host. And maybe that makes me a bad talk show host, but I'm just going to talk about ball. I think you and I have approached this thing the right way. And now that we're here, it's good. Let's go Broncos, man. Today's a good day.
I'll tell you something. I was talking with James Marilat when we were doing a dress rehearsal on coffee break in the studio with the new setup and everything. And he and I were like, it's no fun if we agree, right? It's
right.
good. It's good that he's in one direction and I'm in the other direction. I mean, I sort of love the fact that we've got dueling columns,
Yeah.
That's good. That's healthy. I mean, I will say he comes at his views honestly. You and I come at our views honestly. That's
James will always back it up. Whether
right.
you like it or not, James will back it up.
I mean,
And
D-Mac and I went out on coffee break this morning, but it's
I saw
okay.
that.
We're all friends. I mean,
Yeah.
we just disagree on that, but that's okay.
There's
I
no
can't,
problem with that.
no, but I'm gonna go on with D-Mac this afternoon. So this is on the radio at 5:00. So yeah, it's that's gonna be a fun discussion. But I think part of it is just like I think back to decades ago when we didn't have the internet, didn't have social media. And I think social media is the biggest thing more than sports talk radio, believe it or not.
Yes.
I think now what we're talking about on sports talk radio, it's driven by the 24/7 nature of things coming at us on social media. But it wasn't this way 20 years ago when there was no social media, but there was the internet. It's hit another level now because of social media. And so there is this there has to be something going on at this moment. And if you don't have what you want at this moment, there's a crisis, even though the players aren't going to show up in the building until April the 3rd. All right. Okay. We got another month before players show up. You and I discussed how you didn't need every coach at the combine to get things done. And oh, by the way, they're probably going to have full staff at the combine anyway. So it's all good. Right.
Everything's fine, everybody.
As you say, light and sweet. Just keep it light and sweet. Everything worked out. Everything is okay. They've got a staff. It may not be the all-star staff that was being talked about a couple months ago in the Adam Schefter piece about what Sean Payton was putting together. But you mentioned Westhoff being there to guide special teams. You have Vance Joseph, who's got a lot of experience now on the defensive side. This is now starting to look like a staff that can get things done. And certainly it helps that you got the right guy in charge. And that's another thing. I really think Broncos country has been through so much in the last 6 years that it's panic stricken, right? I really think that's the case. And everyone needs to step back. You don't have a first-time head coach anymore. And this is why you need an experienced head coach. Somebody who knows what they're doing, who's seen the crises, who's sailed on some rough seas over the years, isn't going to panic, has things in control. I think people have forgotten what that was like when you had John Fox, when you had Gary Kubiak, when you had Mike Shanahan, and you didn't have to worry about, is this fella going to know what the heck he's doing? No, not anymore. Now you got somebody who knows what they're doing. Chill. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay every day. 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. I got a smile on my face, Mace, when I send you the email every day with the link. Every day.
Every day.
And yeah, I was just like, that makes me happy. I get to email Andrew Mason. We get to do a show together. We get to talk Broncos, man. Like, it's all good, baby. Light and sweet. Light and sweet, baby.
Looks like I'm in a ski lodge, by the way, but I'm actually just like I'm somewhere in the mountains or in the northwoods. No, I'm just in the sunroom. Okay. Although it's not very sunny. You got all the sun and snow. We got clouds and snow, and it just started snowing again here.
Yeah, it was like 3 degrees this morning. So
yeah, I think it's warmer here, but we have humidity, so it probably feels about the same.
Yeah,
as it does there. But Indianapolis next week, I think it's going to be in around 50 degrees. So, and
everything's indoors if it's not. So there.
Right, but since the combine got moved back. I got a Facebook notification, like, when you log in and you see like, oh, on
memories.
Yeah. Well, the memory I got last week was settling in at the combine, and it reminded me how basically the combine was a week or two earlier than it now is. Right.
Yeah.
And back when it was in mid-February, combine weather really meant something. It was drive the snot out of your nose cold when you were walking on the streets of downtown Indianapolis. Just pushing it back a week or two has changed things dramatically in terms of how the weather is in central Indiana. Edward Wright saying it's 82 degrees where they in Virginia. Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice. I could go for that right now, although I was just in Florida where it was warm. Chris Prangley saying, you guys changed my perspective on VJ. I'm definitely more optimistic about it. Well, thank you. I mean, I'm optimistic too. I'm optimistic because you're asking him to do the job that he can do and not the job that he couldn't do well, but he may well do pretty well somewhere else in time. So I think you've got him in the right spot, in a place, in an environment where I believe he can succeed.
Okay. Weather is brought to you by everyone in our chat room.
Jose, 90 degrees in Panama.
Hey, everyone's all warm and so I'm gonna start taking my shirt off. Anyway, before we get there, it is Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey. We appreciate you all. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Those are mudras, Mace, from Kempo.
Oh, nice.
So know that you are appreciated. Always stay tuned and stay frosty.